Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from section 1 group 6 are going to present about the analysis of international trade. Here is our group members. Our group consists of 6 people. The first one is Adlin binti Zulbahrin. Second is Izzah binti Raimee. Third is Alisa binti Kamzaiman. Fourth is Mukhlis bin Azhar. Fifth is Farhan binti Mohammad Fadzli. And the last one is Husna binti Mujibu Rahman. Next, I will proceed to the introduction to international trade.
My name is Alisa and I'm going to present about the introduction to international trade and the definition of imports. International trade is an exchange involving goods or services between at least two different countries. The trade occurs when countries do not have resources or capacity to satisfy their needs or wants. By developing their domestic scarce resources, they can produce a surplus of their own products and trade with other countries. Mutual benefits can be gained by both countries, which is more consumption of goods in both nations. Malaysia has been involved in international trade, where it is a party of General Agreement of Tariffs and Trade since 1957 and also one of the founding members of World Trade Organization. Trade balance is the difference between monetary value of a country's import and export over a given period of time. Positive trade balance indicates a trade surplus, while negative trade balance indicates a trade deficit. Malaysia's trade balance has a mix of both since 1980, but in general, the trade balance is positive from 1995 until now. Malaysia's trade performance is good with an upward growth of trade in the span of 18 years. It can be seen that the country's total trade increased significantly from around 700 billion ringgit in 2000 to Rm 1,875.76 billion in 2018. Next, I'm going to present about definition of import. An import is a good or service bought in one country that is produced by another. Throughout the years from 1980 until 2010, we can see that Japan maintained to be the first in ranking of our main import country. It can also be seen that United States of America and Singapore maintained to be in the top 3. However, in 2010, China climbed up the ladder and became the second largest importer after Japan. After 2010, China became our largest importer and retained its position until now. Why? This is due to in the 1990s, China opened its door for foreign direct investment and attracted other countries with low cost of exports and low cost of labors. As a result, they become one of the largest economy in the world and overtakes the US. Malaysia also has trade agreements with China, resulting to China becoming our largest importer for the 11th year since 2010. In fact, in 2020, China's import share is 19.7%, which is more than double of the second in ranking, which is Singapore of 9.7% of import share. Next is main composition of import. As of March 2021, we can see that the main composition of import is led by electrical products, chemical products, and petroleum products. If we compare with the import composition throughout the years, we can see that the composition changes. In 1960, the main composition of import consists of food, which is 23.4% of total import, followed by manufactured goods and mineral fuels. However, from the table, we can see that the first import ranking is replaced by machinery and transport equipment starting from 1970 and maintained until now. Food import, on the other hand, keep on decreasing throughout the years. It can be noted that in the span of 10 years, from 1990 until 2000, machinery and transport equipment had a 492.5% increase due to the need of development of our country. Chemical product also had an increase of around 330% between 1990 to 2000. If we look at the main composition between 1990, 2000 and 2020, we can conclude that mainly the composition of import is machinery and transport equipment, petroleum oil, and chemical products.
Next, I will present the destination export from Malaysia in 2003 and 2020. Since 1963, Malaysia's economic performance has been one of the Asia best. This is because Malaysia's economy applies the important element which is openness. Malaysia's openness to international trade, such as export, lead to economic growth for the past 3.5 decades in Malaysia. What is export? Generally, export can be defined as goods or services produced in one country that are sold in another country. I will compare the top 5 Malaysia export destinations in 2003 and 2020. In 2003, the first country that Malaysia export most of their product was the United States. Malaysia export to US for approximately 20% of Malaysia's total exports. This amount ranks Malaysia as the top 20 largest US major trading partners. However, in 2020, export product to the United States has declined, which is only 11.1% compared to 2003. Thus, it made United States becoming third destination in 2020. For the second country in 2003 and 2020 was same, which is Singapore, among 62.5 billion ringgit and 142.16 billion ringgit respectively. This is because in Asian country, Singapore has consistently been Malaysia's largest trading partner and is Malaysia's second largest trading partner. For the third country in 2003 was Japan at 10.7% of total exports. According to Yusuf 2005, Japan has been third largest Malaysian trading partner. However, in 2020, export to Japan has been declined to 6.3%, which led to the fifth export countries in 2020. For the fourth country in 2003 was China, among 25.8 billion ringgit of total export. On the other hand, in 2020, China was the main destination of export for Malaysia, among 158.16 billion ringgit. Lastly, fifth country in 2003 was Hong Kong, with percentage of 6.5%. However, in 2020, export to Hong Kong has been increased to 6.9%, which made Hong Kong become fourth destination export in 2020. In sum, United States, China, Singapore, Japan, and Hong Kong are the main destination export of Malaysia. Therefore, if something issue in this country, such as political issue, it can affect the amount of Malaysia export. Next, I will compare the top 5 Malaysia export product in 2003 and 2020. For the both year, the main Malaysia export product was electrical and electronic, or known as E&E products. However, the percentage in 2020 of this product decreased by 13.6% compared to 2003. Example of this product is semiconductor equipment and transistor. Next, the second export product in 2003 was palm oil, as the China remains Malaysia's largest palm oil export market, among 2.5 million tons in 2003. However, in 2020, export palm oil has declined to 4.7%, thus becoming the palm oil is the fourth most export product. This is mainly the reasons that Malaysia successfully transformed their economy from an agriculture-based economy into the industry-based economy. Total export of palm oil products consisting of palm oil, palm kernel oil, and finished product. The third product in 2003 was chemical and chemical products. These products have the same rank in 2020, even though the percentage in 2020 was higher than 2003 with increase by 0.4%. This product basically contains product groups such as basic industrial chemicals and paints. For the fourth product in 2003 was petroleum product by 4% of export product. On the other hand, this product getting higher in export, hence petroleum product becomes second most export in 2020 with percentage 6.3%. For the fifth product in 2003 was liquid natural gas, or known as LNG products, account 3.45%. However, in 2020, the fifth product was rubber product, which 4.4% of total export. In short, we can conclude that electrical and electronic, petroleum, palm oil, and chemical products are the main product export for Malaysia.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Husna and I will explain about the evaluation of composition of exports of OIC countries. Traditionally, Malaysia's major trading partners were the United States of America, the European Union, and Japan. But this trend has been shifted somewhat, primarily due to the 2008 and 2009 world economic and financial crisis. In 2009, Malaysia's major exporting and importing nations have tilted more towards other new markets, and non-traditional countries such as China. In response to the crisis, Malaysian government has embarked on a new strategy to shift its trade dependency on the traditional markets and exploring new markets for exports and imports. One of the markets being targeted is the Middle Eastern countries. The prospect and opportunities in forging a closer and deeper regional economic cooperation under OIC, particularly with the rich Arab countries, are yet to be full-tapped, especially through the means of the trade Abidin, Jantan and Satar. A study has analyzed Malaysia's trade relation with the Gulf Cooperation Council (GCC) countries, which consists of the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Oman and Kuwait. Using Trade Intensity Index, they showed that Malaysia's trade with the individual GCC country and with GCC as a group were very low during the 1990 until 2007 period of study. Over the recent years, Malaysia and OIC trade relationship is relatively small compared with Malaysia's trade with the rest of the world, although it has shown an increasing pattern. In 2007, for example, Malaysia's total trade with the OIC member countries accounted only 8.37% of its total global trade. However, in merchandise exports, OIC countries have witnessed an improvement in their total exports to the world, and their aggregate exports increased to USD 1.98 trillion in 2018. However, and due to over-proportional increase of exports from OIC countries, the share of OIC countries in total exports of developing countries bounced back to 25.3% in 2018 compared to 23.6% in 2017. OIC countries' collective share in total world merchandise exports decreased to its lowest level of 8.8% in 2016. However, they experienced an increase to 9.3% in 2017 and 10.2% in 2018. In 2018, the top 5 largest OIC exporters, which is Malaysia, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Indonesia, accounted for 15.1% of total merchandise export of all members countries. For service exports, OIC countries exported USD 397 billion worth of services in 2018, which is the highest recorded by the group of OIC members. OIC countries as a group account for 6.8% of global services exports and 10.3% of global services imports. United Arab Emirates with USD 71 billion exports and 17.8% share in total OIC services exports was the top exporter in services in 2018.
Next, let's see what is the trade cooperation between OIC countries, how the trade between OIC countries can be increased. The OIC members have concluded several agreements, programs and plans to build the fundamentals of Islamic common market from the 1970s onwards. In 1977, the members signed the General Agreement of Economic, Technical and Commercial Cooperation with the objective of encouraging capital and investment flows and stimulating exchange of information and skills among the member countries. In the year 1990, which is after the establishment of Islamic Common Market, some of the OIC members signed the TPS agreement, which is the trade preferential system of the OIC countries. The TPS aims to promote trade among the OIC countries through the exchange of tariff, para-tariff and non-tariff measures. It consists of 3 different agreements, and only after their signing and ratification by the same 10 OIC members, the legal basis of the TPS could be finalized. And the 3 agreements are the framework agreements on the TPS, which provides general principles in the formation of the TPS, the protocol of the preferential tariff scheme
for TPS, which outlines tariff reduction schemes, and the TPS Rules of Origin, which describes eligible products of tariff discounts under the agreement. The implementation of the TPS depends on the conclusion of the legislative and administrative measures in the signatory countries. In the recent developments in the foreign trade of the OIC member states, the OIC 10-year Program of Action 2005 until 2015, implemented by all OIC countries and member states, has achieved the target set to reach 20% in 2015. At the 13th Islamic Summit of April 2016, held in Istanbul in Republic of Turkey, a new 10-year Program of Action was adopted, aiming at achieving 25% of intra-OIC trade share by 2025, covering the period from 2016 until 2025. The program highlights the importance of trade for development. 5 integrated projects were adopted, namely the industrial development of halal, the single window initiative and trade facilitation, the development of strategic products, investment promotion and support for investment promotion agencies of member states, private sector development and SMEs. The trade share of the OIC countries decreased between 2015 and 2016. As a result of fluctuating commodity prices, the existence of tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade and investment, and the fragile environment of the global economy and trade. Meanwhile, the world trade of the OIC countries decreased from 3.4 trillion USD in 2015 to 3 trillion USD in 2016, which is 12.7% decline. This shows that the trade share of the OIC member states accounted for around 9.3% in 2016 against 10.3% of the world trade in 2015, which is 10% decline. The main traded products during this year are various manufactured goods at 28%, food products, machinery and transport equipment, and mineral fuels 19% each, chemicals 9%, and non-edible raw materials 6%. Moving on to the trade in service of OIC member states. According to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, the data of October 2017, the global trade of commercial services of the OIC countries reached in 2016 in a value 807.8 billion USD against 822.30 billion USD in 2015, corresponding to a 1.8% decline. The main players in trade services are United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Turkey, Indonesia, Qatar, Kuwait, Egypt, Lebanon, and Iran. These 10 countries are accounted for 72.5% of the total trade of the OIC countries in 2016. To strengthen the economic and trade cooperation among the OIC countries, the OIC institutions and member states must contribute to the implementation of the project initiated by the OIC General Secretariat within the framework of the 10-year Program of Action OIC 2025 through the activities of its subcommittees, especially those relating to capacity building, cross-participation in national fairs, OIC exhibition and business fora, particularly those organized by ICT and the IDB, but also simplifying procedures of foreign trade and investment in order to boost trade between the member states.
Next, I will present about the opportunity and challenges of international trade. The first opportunity of international trade is we can increase the market size. The size of an international market has a significant influence on the firm as they can invest in research and development to gain competitive advantage. Organizations usually prefer to invest in those countries which have scientific knowledge so that the firm can make optimum utilization of research and development activities to gain competitive advantage. Firms belonging to domestic markets having low growth opportunity always prefer international strategy to expand their operation and to earn profit across the world. Secondly, we can have a wider economy of scale as expanding firm operation can reduce the total cost of production, and integration of critical resource functions result in optimal economies of scale. Organization can gain core competencies with the help of resources and knowledge sharing with other countries through international market. Knowledge sharing helps in expand its operation and to produce efficient products and services at cost effectiveness. Lastly, we can gain opportunity of international trade, especially to the investor on their return of their investment. Huge markets are crucial in acquiring return, especially for capital-intensive investment like plant and capital equipment or research and development. The new technological changes and new products sometimes cannot fulfill the customer's need, so the firm's role is to maintain investment in such way. For the challenges of international trade, there are 3 challenges that we can easily find and relate when we have thought on the international trade. Firstly, the language barrier that often happen during the process of trading. When engaging in international business, it is important to consider the language spoken in the countries to which you are looking to expand. Does your product messaging translate well into another language? Consider hiring an interpreter and consulting a native speaker or resident of each country. One example of product lost in translation comes from a luxury car brand Mercedes-Benz. When entering the Chinese market, the company chose a Mandarin Chinese name that sounded like Benz. Benzi. The name translates to rush to death in Mandarin Chinese, which was not the impression Mercedes-Benz want to make with its new audience. The company quickly adapted, changing its name to Benzi, which translates to run quickly, speed or gallop. It's also critical to consider the language spoken by your company's team members based in international offices. Once again, investing in interpreter can help to ensure your business to continue operate smoothly. Next is the cultural differences. Just as each country has its own makeup of languages, each also has its own specific culture or blend of cultures. Culture consists of holidays, traditions, art, food, and social norm, followed by a specific group of people. When managing teams in offices abroad, selling product to an international retailer or potential client, or running an overseas production facility, demonstrating that you have taken time to understand their culture can project the respect and emotional intelligence necessary to conduct the business successfully. One example of cultural difference between the United States and Spain is the working hour of typical workday. In the United States, working hours are from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., often extending earlier or later. In Spain, however, working hours are typically from 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. The break in the middle of workday allows for a siesta, which is a rest taken after lunch in many Mediterranean and European countries. Lastly, the currency exchange and inflation rate of the countries. The value of a dollar of your country will not always equal with the amount in another country currencies, or will be the value of currency consistently be worth the same amount of goods and services. Familiarize yourself with currency exchange rates between your country and those countries you plan to do business. For instance, the current exchange rate from the Canadian dollar to US dollar is 0.77, meaning 1 Canadian dollar is equal to 77 cents of US currency. Make it a point to watch exchange rate closely as they can fluctuate. It is also important to monitor inflation rate, which are the rate that general price level in economy increase year over year.
My name is Mukhlis bin Azhar, and now I'm going to present the impact of the international trade. There are 2 impacts. The first one is impact on wages. Many developing countries went through extensive trade liberalization, including Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, India, and Mexico in the 1980s and early 1990s. Most of these countries observed increase in inequality after trade liberalization took place. Increases in skill premiums and other measures of wage inequality tended to coincide with these trade reforms. Wage inequality between skilled and unskilled labor has also been increasing in developed countries such as US. In addition, for most developed economies in the 1980s and early 1990s, increased international trade and rapid technological change occurred simultaneously. Given that both effects tend to influence inequality in a similar fashion, for example by expanding the gap between skilled and unskilled wages, the disentangling of their impacts remains a key challenge, because it is easier to observe and quantify international trade. Such expansions are often associated with globalization. The mechanism through which trade affects wages and their distribution is linked to the relative amount of skilled labor used in the production of the traded good. A country that exports low skill intensive product experiences an increase in the prices of low skill intensive product in their home market. This leads to a rise in the real wages of workers with low skill levels and a reduction in the real wages of workers with high skill levels, thus reducing wage inequality. On the other hand, a country that exports high skill intensive product will experience a rise in high skill real wages and a reduction in low skill real wages, thus increasing wage inequality. Because developing countries are relatively abundant in low skill labor, standard trade theory predicts that trade should reduce income inequality in developing countries and increase income inequality in developed nations. The second one is impact on consumption. In developing countries, consumer products that are internationally traded constitute a very important portion of household budgets. The changes in their prices therefore have significant welfare effects. One of the most important tradable product categories, food and beverages, may constitute the entire budget for the poorest household. This budget share of food is lower in developed nations, where incomes are higher. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Economic Research Service, a household that experiences a wage loss due to international competition may also see a reduction in their cost of consumption and hence experience a net welfare gain due to international trade. Studies that have investigated the impact of unilateral trade liberalization episodes found that the distributional effects of international trade were progressive. While the prices of tradable products are directly impacted by trade policy, non-tradable services are only indirectly impacted after all the resulting adjustments in the economy have taken place. In Argentina, non-tradable prices were shown to respond to changes in the prices of tradable goods. Accordingly, food and beverage prices were negatively related to the prices of education and health, and positively related to communication, housing, and transportation. If a relatively unskilled labor-intensive tradable sector experiences a price increase due to trade liberalization, then the relative wage of unskilled labor increases. This wage increase leads to higher prices in the relatively unskilled labor-intensive non-tradable sector, while reducing prices in the relatively skilled labor-intensive non-tradable sector. For example, a price increase in the food industry causes an expansion in food production, and thus relative demand for unskilled labor increase. This pushed up the wages of all unskilled labor in the economy, leading to price increase in non-tradable sectors that use unskilled labor intensively, such as housing. The budget share of non-tradable goods also tends to be smaller among poor households, especially in developing countries. This is an important empirical fact for assessing the distributional effect, as it implies that the direct effect of trade-induced price changes is more important for poor households. For conclusion, international trade is extremely beneficial and crucial for the continuance of globalization. Without international trade, nations would be limited to the goods and services produced within their own borders. The economic basis for trade is that nations have different resources, which cause some nations to obtain absolute advantage, which means a country can produce more of a particular product from a specific quantity of resources than other countries. Comparative advantage helps the country get closer to allocative and productive efficiency, yet one must keep in mind that some countries, on the other hand, have comparative advantage, which means a country can produce a specific product at a lower opportunity cost than other countries. And opportunity cost plays a major role in international trade. Nations differ in their endowment of economic resources, and not all developed or undeveloped countries have the same technology to produce products needed in an efficient way and with the lowest variable cost.